Hello, BookTube. I have a nice, modest February mail haul for you. Just 3 packages. Thought we'd go through them and see what we can find. No need for every mail haul to be 40 minutes long. No need for every video to be 40 minutes long. Let's see what we can do in maybe 15 minutes, shall we? Okay, the first one looks like historical fiction. Oh my. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, this comes out in late July, so this is a long way off. It's by Fiona Davis. Some of you will know her. She's a first-rate historical novelist. And this is The Lions of Fifth Avenue. Those of you who are not familiar with New York will know what lions are being talked about here. They even have names. 2020 marks the 125th anniversary of the New York Public Library. Since its founding, the library has been a vital part of the intellectual and cultural fabric of American life. No, it hasn't, but it's been an integral part of the intellectual life of New York. This literary mecca is one of the city's most iconic landmarks, so it is with little surprise that historical novelist, national bestseller, and library darling, I'd love to be a library darling, Fiona Davis has chosen to set her upcoming novel, The Lions of Fifth Avenue, within its walls. If you haven't been to the New York Public Library, I am the first person to throw cold water on the pretenses of glory of all things New York, but the New York Public Library is astonishing. It is astonishing. I have been toured through it many, many times. I have seen every inch and cranny of it. Of course, my first loyalty are to a couple of libraries in Boston that are, in my opinion, prettier. The old library, especially Bates Hall, in the Boston Public Library, and also the Boston Athenaeum, I think, are both prettier libraries. But the New York Public Library has the unbeatable combination of beauty and utility. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people use it vigorously every year. So, well, what have we got here? The novel alternates between the perspectives of Laura Lyons, Lyons, wife of the library superintendent in 1913, and Sadie Donovan, a curator at the New York Public Library in 1993. The women are connected by the library, but also by blood. Laura is Sadie's estranged grandmother and a famous essayist. Sadie struggles with the legacy of her grandmother, whom she knows very little about, as her own mother seldom spoke of her. But when rare manuscripts, notes, and books from the exhibit Sadie has been curating go missing from the library's famous Berg collection, unwelcome truths about her family heritage are uncovered, truths that shed new light on the biggest tragedy in the library's history. Okay. Okay, fantastic. So they are 1913 and 1993, so there's a symmetry there as well. And once again, we note that the present action of this novel is set pre-internet. A trend that I'm noticing, and not only in lots and lots of contemporary fiction, but also in lots of historical fiction, where writers are just deciding, I don't need the aggravation. Maybe that's not the decision in Fiona Davis's case, but a lot of writers, especially contemporary fiction, I'm getting the impression, well, okay, you weren't alive in the 1980s, or you were a child, so you don't have a directly evocative reason that's personal to set your book then. I get the strong impression with a lot of contemporary fiction that these authors are just cutting corners. That's all. They're just making it easier on themselves. Why should I bother with setting something in the present day where people have instantaneous communication and instantaneous navigation and all that sort of stuff, when I can make it easier on myself and easier to construct a drama by setting it before all that? Not sure what I think of it. But that might not be the case in this. Fiona Davis has I've read many of her books. She's terrific. And she doesn't strike me as the type of author who would cut corners or would need to. So, what have we got here? Okay. All right. I don't know what we have here. This is a Penguin Classic. I get Penguin Classics in the mail. This is a very rare thing for me. I don't usually get anything like this. This is an advance copy, an ARC. A review copy of a Penguin Classic. I don't usually get these. And it's an early June release of a book called Olivia by Dorothy Strachey. It's going to have an introduction by Andre Asselman. Is the introduction actually in C2 yet? Or no? Oh no, the introduction is here. It's a short thing, very short. It's a tiny little. The Penguin ARCs are white on black, or with black stripe instead of black with a white stripe. What have we got here? Penguin Classics is excited to bring Dorothy Strachey's groundbreaking novel Olivia back into the spotlight as the first lesbian novel on our list. The first lesbian novel on the Penguin Classic list? Can that be true? The Penguin's never done The Well of Loneliness? That can't be true. Anyway, let's see here. Originally published by Leonard Woolf in 1949 and dedicated to Virginia Woolf, this exclusive Penguin Classics edition features a thoughtful foreword by Andre Assman, who cites Olivia as the inspiration for his New York Times best-selling novel Call Me By Your Name. Ha ha ha! Yeah. As Rumpel the Bailey would say, pull the other one, it's got bells on it. Based on the author's own experiences and real-life crush on her teacher Marie Souvestre, Olivia is told through the eyes of 16-year-old Olivia, a girl sent from England to a Parisian finishing school to broaden her education. Soon after arriving, Olivia finds herself falling under the spell of her beautiful and charismatic teacher, Mademoiselle Julie, who takes Olivia under her wing and introduces her to art, literature, and her own budding sense of desire. As they grow closer, their relationship is threatened by jealousy and rivalry, and the school year seems destined to end in tragedy. I have not read this book. This is another Penguin Classic that I haven't read. Okay. And Sarah Waters, the author of Fingersmith and a bunch of other novels, says that this book perfectly captures the breathless excitement of adolescent passion, which is not an easy thing to do. It's omnipresent. We've all experienced it, but it's hard to capture it. Okay, so Dorothy Strachey was born in 1865 and died in 1960, and she was a member of the Bloomsbury Group and the sister of the writer Lytton Strachey. I wonder if she died in 1960. Was she the last Bloomsbury person to die? Good Lord, she lived for a century. And she also became a great friend of André Gide and translated his works into English. Okay. So maybe I have come across her name before. Okay, well, I've never read this book. So it's a Penguin Classic in an advance copy. It comes out in June. All right. Well, I guess I'll deal with it then. That's kind of odd. I swear. I know I say it all the time, but I never know what I'm going to get on this in the mail on this channel. Let's see. Let's see what this last one is, and then we'll be done. What is this last one? Oh God, I've got a Manhattan phone book here along with it. What is all this stuff? What is all this stuff? That's what a previous critic said. Am I interested in what a previous critic said? Unless I know that critic, I most certainly am not. And even if I know that critic, well, almost certainly, if I know them, I will know the shortcomings in their reading ability, so I won't be interested then either. I don't need to know that. Well, we're whittling this thing down to size. Yeah, I don't need a Q&A with you. I'm not interested in how you answer questions about growing up in Poughkeepsie. I just want to know about the book. All right, there we go. We're down to one page. So this is Places I've Taken My Body by Molly McCulley Brown. It's a slim volume of what, once again, another publisher is calling essays. We have to come up with another word. Pensées, perhaps. We have seen this on this channel many, many times. And the thing that's inside these books are not essays. They are, in the worst cases, the scripts for stand-up comedy routines. And even in the best cases, they are mere collections of aphorisms. They are not... I am not going to agree with redefining the word essay to mean, a momentary thought that passes your head with no structure and no beginning, no middle, and no end. Any more than I am going to agree with redefining literally to mean figuratively. Just because these things are happening doesn't mean I have to agree with them. I find it hard. I don't know anything about this author. I could be wrong. This is the length for a couple of essays. Maybe 4. So I don't know what's going to be in here. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. This is a collection of essays which approach from a variety of angles the author's personal struggles with cerebral palsy, her evolving understanding of the intersection between her physical body and that intangible other she has come reluctantly and gratefully to call the soul. Molly is known for her award-winning poetry collection, the Virginia State Colony for Epileptics and Feeble-Minded, which was named a New York Times Critic Top Book for 2017. The state colony near her home in Virginia haunted Molly. As a person born with a disability, Molly could not help but imagine that she might have suffered the same fate as the patients there had she been born in that era. That is a haunting thought. The more you learn about those institutions, the more you realize you just had to mouth off to the wrong person to get sent there. And if you had any kind of physical challenge, even so much as a limp, but imagine cerebral palsy, for God's sake, you'd have been sent there right away. Even though you could look around you and see that you had epileptics, you had murderous psychotics, you had sociopaths, all lumped together and hosed down with cold water at barbaric velocities if they so much as said peep to their keepers. Every once in a while, one of these places would be relatively enlightened, but most of them were hellholes. So I don't imagine that haunted her. The book, there's the previous book, caught the public's attention and catapulted Molly into the literary limelight. I've never heard of her before. I'm fairly familiar with the literary limelight. She was invited to give numerous talks and readings across the country and was featured on NPR and other national media. And this book is equally powerful and moving. I haven't read the other one. Written in introspective and lyrical prose, the essays intertwine in time, creating a montage of Molly's life from childhood until the present. The book is both an angst-ridden coming-of-age story of a gifted young woman and a travelogue of sorts. Molly writes about her growing pains as a child with a neurological disorder, suffering through surgeries and medical interventions. She shares discoveries and the logistical challenges of traveling with a wheelchair in Europe while on a writing scholarship. That sounds fascinating. She struggles with faith, finding a home in Catholicism, and writes of her spiritual ties to her twin sister who died after birth. At the heart of it all, Molly shares her own changing relationship with cerebral palsy and the language with which we talk about our bodies. Okay. Well, what have we got here? Let's see here. See what I mean? Do you see what I mean, BookTube? Of course you don't, because you're not looking at what I'm seeing. This has 24 chapters. 200 pages long. And it has 24 chapters. So, wow. We will see. This comes out in June. I have a long time to worry about terminology. I have a long time to worry about. I don't have to worry about terminology just yet. So, I will read them and see. Maybe I'll be so caught up in them that I won't give a bloody hell what they're called. I don't know. All right, so that is the mail. That is a strange mail. This is a strange mail. It was all over creation. So we have a thin volume, The Places I've Taken My Body, a collection of nonfiction reflections and anecdotes and musings by Molly McCulley Brown, who apparently had some notoriety for an earlier collection of poetry. We have an advance copy of Olivia by Dorothy Strachey. It's going to be a new Penguin Classic in June. And we have The Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona Davis, a historical novel coming out in July. So these are all a long way off. I don't have to think about any of them. A historical novel coming out in July that is largely, breathing the atmosphere of the New York Public Library. How interesting is that? Probably be a lot of info dumps in here about the New York Public Library. So there you go. Very strange mail haul. Let me know if any of it struck you as of interest. Also, of course, you know that I'm nosy. You know that I want to know. Have you been to the New York Public Library? Do you have memories that you could tell me? Do you have anecdotes that you want to share? I've been many, many times, and I've always loved it, but I've always felt a little disloyal loving it because the Boston Public Library is not the new building, not the new building. The old building was a home to me. I've spent a huge amount of time there in Bates Hall, working on things and getting away. I've also spent a huge amount of time prowling the stacks in the new library. And I showed you a couple of years ago, my friend Deb and I went to the new library. The new library had an enormous renovation. It used to be this big atomic shelter bunker of a thing. Just another example, one other example of the examples of so-called brutalist architecture that litter Boston to this day. Now, I think that the city shouldn't invest money, a huge amount of money, in renovating these things. I think they should be dynamited, including City Hall. Just blow them up and start over. Build a nice-looking building in their place. Because brutalism can't be salvaged. At least that's what I thought. until I looked at the job that was done to the gigantic, ugly, low-browed, menacing cinder block of the new building. The Boston Public Library has a beautiful old building, and then a new building that's sort of conjoined to it like a dead Siamese twin. And this new building was absolutely hideous. Just from the day that it was debuted, I've spent an enormous amount of time railing against it, and I, of course, was pessimistic about the renovation. I thought, well, you can't polish a turd. There's nothing you can do with this thing, and I was wrong. The renovation is about as thorough as you could do without dynamiting the building. If you didn't know what the old building was like to walk in, you would never guess it from the new building. Not in a million years. You wouldn't guess it at all. So my hat's off to the renovation committee because they've made a new library out of the new building. But I was never tempted to disloyalty in the new building. But when I've been to the New York Public Library and done some work there, I've always felt I love it. It's absolutely beautiful, especially the Rose Reading Room. But I've always felt a little disloyal because the Boston Public Library is so pretty and it's mine. but neither one of them holds a candle to the Athenaeum, so it doesn't matter anyway. And New York has anyway. We don't have to go on and on about libraries. There you go. That is our mail haul for today. It's nice and short. Not as short as it would have been if I hadn't wool gathered, but you come to expect that. So I'm going to wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.